Focus on yourself. Everything changes. Be honest with yourself for just a moment. So are you tired? Not tired from working too much, but the kind of exhaustion that stretches your soul so thin you can barely breathe. Have you ever laid down and asked yourself, who am I even living for? Why do I always feel behind, lost, and never enough? If you feel drained, disappointed, ignored, or abandoned, I want you to hear a truth no one has ever told you. You're not weak. You've just been focusing on the wrong people and forgetting yourself for far too long. You didn't come to this video for some shallow motivation. This video is a mirror that shows you what you've been avoiding. You give more than you receive. You show up for everyone, but no one shows up for you. You try to be the good one, the strong one, the understanding one, and in return, you get used, overlooked, and taken for granted. You soothe other people's pain, but who soothes yours? You listen to the whole world. Reasons why you should focus on yourself. Here's the real truth, sex. It might be hard to hear at first. When you don't control your own focus, someone else will gladly control it for you. And the moment they control your focus, they control your emotions, your choices, your time, your energy, and eventually, your entire life. You don't even notice when it starts. It begins quietly, almost innocently. You grow up trying to make your parents proud, trying to make your friends like you, trying to fit into a society that keeps telling you who you should be. And without realizing it, you start living a life built on expectations, not your truth. You listen to everyone around you, but you never actually listen to yourself. Your mind becomes crowded with noise that doesn't belong to you, the pressure to be perfect, the fear of falling behind, the endless comparisons on social media, the subtle judgments from people who don't even know you, the opinions of people who would disappear the moment you need them. Your mind is so full of noise that your own voice can't get through anymore. And this noise drains you. It drains your energy. It drains your confidence. It drains the clarity you once had about who you wanted to be. And then something painful happens. You lose yourself. You wake up tired even after sleeping. You move through your day feeling disconnected from your own soul. You doubt every decision, overthink every message, replay every conversation. Apologize even when you did nothing wrong. You're exhausted, not because life is too hard, but because you're carrying expectations that were never yours to carry. You feel empty. #sex 0.3. Not because you have nothing inside, 0.3, but because you've poured everything into people who never pour back, 0.5. You feel lost, 0.3, not because you lack direction, 0.3, but because your life has been guided by voices that aren't yours, 0.5. And here's the part that hits the deepest. The more you try to please others, the more invisible you become to yourself. 0.5. You shrink your needs to make others comfortable. You hide your dreams to avoid judgment. You silence your truth because you're afraid someone won't approve of it. And every time you do that, a small part of you disappears. You start to believe that your worth depends on how useful, available, or agreeable you are to others. You start to believe that you must earn love, earn approval, earn permission, just to exist. No wonder you're exhausted. No wonder you feel behind. No wonder nothing feels enough. You've been living for everyone, except you. And this is the truth your heart has been begging you to hear. Focusing on yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. It's survival. Because the moment you turn inward, the moment you reclaim your focus, the moment you choose your voice over the noise, your entire life begins to shift. You stop settling. You stop explaining. You stop chasing. You stop breaking yourself to fit into spaces too small for your soul. And for the first time in a long time, you finally start to feel like yourself again. 2. 11 facts that can change your life. Truth 1. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It's about survival. Here's the first truth, and it might be the most important one you'll ever hear. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It's survival. Because if you don't choose yourself, the world will choose for you. And the people who benefit the most from your lack of boundaries will always be the first to complain when you finally decide to change. Think about it. Every time you say yes when your heart is screaming no, you're not being kind. You're abandoning yourself. Every time you force yourself to be there for someone who would never do the same for you, you're cutting a piece of your energy away. Every time you sacrifice your peace just to keep the peace, you're slowly destroying the one person who actually needs you the most. You. And the harsh truth is this: the people who use you rarely appreciate you. They only get upset when you stop allowing them to use you. Steve Jobs once said, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." He was criticized, misunderstood, even disliked, but that unapologetic focus on his own vision made him one of the most iconic creators in history. Oprah Winfrey spent years living for other people's expectations, family, society, television networks. But she once revealed, "The moment I started choosing myself, sex 0.3, everything in my life began to change." 0.5. When you choose yourself, your life expands. When you don't, your life shrinks. You lose clarity. You lose peace. You lose your sense of identity. Because the truth is simple. If you don't focus on your own life, you'll end up living inside someone else's plans, and they won't be thinking about your happiness when they make those plans. So how do you practice this truth? First, identify the patterns. Who always needs you but disappears when you need them? Who drains your energy without giving anything back? Who treats your kindness like an unlimited resource? These are the people you must distance yourself from. Second, pause before you agree to anything. If your body tightens, if your chest feels heavy, if something inside you whispers, "Don't do it," learn to respect that inner signal. Third, sex 0.3. Make yourself the #1 priority, not when you have time. Sex 0.3. Not when everything is done. Sex 0.3. But as a core rule in your life. Sex 0.5. And finally, sex 0.3. Accept this. When you choose yourself, sex 0.3. You will lose people. Sex 0.5. But the ones you lose are exactly the ones who were never meant to stay. Sex 0.5. When you choose yourself, sex 0.3, your confidence changes. Sex 0.5. Your energy changes. Sex 0.5. Your future changes. Sex 0.5. Your entire life changes. Sex 0.5. This is not selfish. Sex 0.5. This is the foundation of every healing. Sex 0.3. Every success. Sex 0.3. And every transformation you've been craving. Sex 0.5. Truth 2. Silence is power. Talk less. Sex 0.3. Grow more. Here's the second truth you need to understand. Silence is power. Point 5. And the moment you learn to talk less, 0.3, your life begins to grow in ways you never imagined. Point 5. Most people talk too much. Point 3. Not because they're confident. Point 3. But because they're afraid of silence. Point 5. They talk to fill the empty space. Point 5. They talk to avoid feeling insecure. Point 5. They talk because they want to be understood. Point 3. Accepted. Validated. But here's the reality. The louder you talk, sex, 0.3, the less you hear. Sex, 0.5, the more you speak. Sex, 0.3, the less you learn. 0.5, and the more you explain yourself. Sex, 0.3, the more power you give away. 0.5. When you choose silence, 0.3, something incredible happens. Point 5. You start to listen more. Point 5. You observe deeper. Point 5. You think clearer. Point 5. You understand faster. Point 5. You become someone others pay attention to, even when you're not saying a word. Look at the world's strongest leaders and most influential minds. They weren't the ones talking non-stop. They were the ones who spoke only when necessary. Take Barack Obama. People often describe him as thoughtfully quiet. He pauses, he listens, and when he finally speaks, every word lands. That's not an accident. That's power. Kobe Bryant was another example. He didn't brag about his plans. He didn't broadcast every move. He simply trained silently at 4 a.m., letting his results speak for him. Silence built his legacy. Even Elon Musk, sex 0.3 despite being one of the most talked about people on the planet. 0.3 reveals his plans only at the right moment. 0.3 never earlier. Point 5. Why? Because people can't sabotage what they don't know. Silence protects your energy. Silence protects your dreams. Silence protects the future you're trying to build. When you talk too much, you leak energy. You reveal your fears. You expose your plans. You hand people the blueprint to your insecurities. And worst of all, you weaken your presence. But when you speak less, your presence becomes sharper. People lean in when you speak. They feel the weight of your words. They sense your strength without you having to display it. And here's the part most people overlook. Silence makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. You don't need to explain why you're changing. You don't need to justify your choices. You don't need to tell people your next move. Let them wonder. Let them assume. Let them stay curious. Your job is not to keep everyone informed. Your job is to keep your energy protected. So, how do you practice this truth? Start by talking less about your dreams. Build them quietly. Stop announcing your goals online. Let your growth shock people. Don't explain your boundaries. Set them and move on. Don't respond to every insult. Not every battle deserves your energy. Don't prove your worth through words. Prove it through actions. And most importantly, sit with your silence. Let yourself think. Let yourself breathe. Let yourself grow. Because the truth is simple. The less noise you create, the more powerful you become. And when your silence is filled with purpose, your results will speak louder than anything you could ever say. Truth 3. Ignore negativity. Protect your peace. Here's the third truth. If you don't learn to ignore negativity, you will spend your entire life reacting instead of growing. The world is full of noise, opinions, sex, 0.3 insults, sex, 0.3 assumptions, sex, 0.3 drama, sex, 0.3 misunderstandings. And if you give your energy to every single one of them, 0.3, you will lose yourself long before you ever find your purpose. 0.5, not every comment deserves your response. 0.5, not every rumor needs clarification. 0.5, not every insult requires you to defend yourself. 0.5, you need to understand something most people never learn. Reacting to negativity doesn't protect your peace, it destroys your progress. Imagine you're building a house. Every morning you lay one more brick. 0.3, you stay focused. 0.3, you work in silence. But every time someone yells something at you from across the street, you drop everything, walk over, and argue. At the end of the day, nothing gets built, except your frustration. That's exactly what happens when you respond to negativity. You delay your growth. You feed your anger. You deepen your wounds. And the worst part? The people you're responding to don't even care. Their opinions won't pay your bills. Their judgments won't build your future. Sex. Their negativity won't make you stronger unless you learn to walk away from it. Look at the most successful people in the world. They're not successful because everyone loved them. They're successful because they stopped caring who hated them. Taylor Swift faced years of online hate, accusations, and public humiliation. She didn't fight every rumor. She didn't argue with every critic. She ignored the noise and poured her energy into her craft, and she rose higher because of it. Michael Jordan was criticized constantly, too arrogant, too competitive, too emotional. He didn't waste time proving himself to the critics. He proved himself on the court. He let his results answer every insult. You must do the same. Stop trying to fix how people see you. Stop trying to change minds that are already closed. Stop giving your power to people who don't deserve to hold it. So how do you protect your peace? Mute people who drain you. Unfollow accounts that trigger you. Sex, 0.5. Walk away from arguments that go nowhere. 0.5. Only explain yourself once, never twice. And whenever someone tries to pull you into their chaos, remember this truth. Silence is not weakness. Distance is not fear. Ignoring negativity is not losing. It is choosing your peace over their noise. And when you choose peace, you choose strength. You choose clarity. You choose yourself. Truth 4. Discipline over motivation. Consistency wins. Here's the fourth truth you need to accept if you want your life to change. Motivation is unreliable, temporary, emotional, and often disappears the moment life gets difficult. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't wait for inspiration. Discipline simply asks one question: will you show up today or not? And that question alone separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. The hard truth is this: most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they lack consistency. They start strong, get excited, feel motivated, but the moment things become boring, repetitive, or uncomfortable, they stop, they quit, they disappear, and then they wonder why nothing changes. Look at any high achiever in the world, and you'll see the same pattern. Kobe Bryant didn't become Kobe because he was motivated every morning. He became Kobe because he practiced at 4 a.m. whether he felt inspired or not. Motivation didn't make him legendary, discipline did. Serena Williams trained on the days she felt powerful and on the days she wanted to cry. She built a legacy not through emotion, but through repetition. And even writers like Stephen King, who wrote more than 60 books, don't rely on feeling inspired. He writes every single day, even on holidays, even when he doesn't want to. That's the truth. Consistency is what builds excellence. Motivation is what destroys it. Because when you rely on motivation, you only work when life feels good. But when you rely on discipline, you work even when life feels heavy. So how do you build discipline? First, lower the resistance. Don't wait for the perfect mood. Start small. 5 minutes. 1 page. 10 push-ups. Tiny wins create unstoppable momentum. Second, create an environment that supports your growth. Remove distractions before they remove you. Put your phone in another room. Clean your space. Make your goals easy to begin. Third, commit to a rule. Never miss 2 days in a row. Missing 1 day is human. Missing 2 days becomes a pattern. Fourth, embrace boredom. Discipline is not exciting, it's repetitive. But repetition is the birthplace of mastery. And finally, keep your promises to yourself. Because every time you break a promise, you weaken your identity. But every time you keep one, even a small one, you strengthen your belief in who you're becoming. Motivation makes you start. Discipline makes you unstoppable. And consistency? Consistency is what makes you win. Truth 5. Small habits, big transformation. The 1% rule. Here's the 5th truth you need to understand. Your life doesn't change because of one big moment. It changes because of the small, boring, almost invisible habits you repeat every single day. Everyone wants massive success, but very few people want the small daily actions that create it. The world loves the idea of overnight transformation, but real transformation happens slowly, quietly, and consistently, 1% at a time. Think of it like this. If you improve just 1% every day, that small shift compounds into an entirely different life after 1 year. Not because you made huge leaps, but because you made tiny decisions that added up. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, explains that small habits are like interest on money. They compound. They don't look powerful on day 1, but over time, they become unstoppable. And he's right. Look at anyone who mastered their craft. They didn't do it through massive bursts of energy. They did it through small, repeated actions. Lionel Messi didn't become one of the greatest athletes by doing big things. He practiced the same drills, the same movements, the same fundamentals thousands of times. Each repetition looked small, but those small repetitions built a giant. Or look at Warren Buffett. His wealth didn't come from sudden breakthroughs. It grew steadily over decades, compounding slowly, like habits do. Small choices build big futures. The tragedy is that most people underestimate the power of small habits. They think reading 1 page doesn't matter. They think 10 minutes of exercise doesn't matter. They think drinking water instead of soda doesn't matter. They think writing down goals for 3 minutes doesn't matter. But here's the truth. The small habits you think don't matter are exactly the ones shaping who you're becoming. So how do you apply the 1% rule? Start with habits that are too small to fail. Sex, 0.5. 1 page of reading. Sex, 0.5. 1 minute of breathing. Sex, 0.5. 1 push-up. Sex, 0.5. 1 sentence written. Sex, 0.5. One new English word. Sex 0.5. When your habits are small, sex 0.3. You won't quit. Sex 0.5. Next, sex 0.3. Attach new habits to things you already do. Sex 0.5. After brushing your teeth, sex 0.3. Read 1 page. Sex 0.5. After lunch, sex 0.3. Take a 5-minute walk. Sex 0.5. Before bed, sex 0.3. Review your day. Sex 0.5. And most importantly, track your wins. Sex 0.5. Because when you see small progress, your brain becomes addicted to growth. Sex 0.5. Your habits shape your identity. Sex 0.5. Your identity shapes your future. Sex 0.5. And your future starts with the small things you choose today. Sex 0.5. One tiny habit at a time. Sex 0.5. 1% at a time. Sex 0.5. That's how transformation begins. Sex 0.5. Truth 6. Solitude builds you. Silence is your cocoon. Here's the 6th truth. Sex 0.3. And it's one most people run from. Solitude isn't loneliness. Point 5. Solitude is transformation. Point 5. The silence you fear is actually the cocoon that will rebuild you into the person you were meant to become. Most people avoid being alone because silence forces them to hear everything they've been running from. The pain, the confusion, the disappointment, the truth. So they fill every empty moment with noise, scrolling on their phone, over-talking, chasing attention, distracting themselves with anything that keeps their mind occupied. But here's what they don't realize. You cannot heal in noise. You cannot grow in chaos. And you cannot meet your true self when you're surrounded by people who drain you, distract you, or pull you away from your purpose. Every major transformation in nature begins in solitude. A caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly in a crowd. It hides, it retreats, it disappears into silence. And inside that silence, inside that darkness, a total transformation takes place. The same is true for you. When you step away from the noise, you begin to hear the voice you've ignored for years. Your own. You start to understand what you want. Sex, what you need. What hurts you. And what heals you. Solitude helps you separate your desires from society's expectations. It gives you clarity. It gives you direction. It gives you power. Some of the world's greatest minds understood this deeply. Nikola Tesla once said, "The mind is sharper and keener in seclusion." He wasn't exaggerating. Some of his most groundbreaking ideas were born in silence. Philosophers like Marcus Aurelius wrote entire books while in solitude, reflecting on their own thoughts, facing their fears, and shaping their identity. Even modern creators like J. Rowling talk about stepping away from the world to write and finding her true voice only in isolation. Solitude isn't emptiness, it's preparation. So how do you embrace it? Start with simple steps. Take a walk without your phone. Sit in silence for 5 minutes a day. Journal whatever rises to the surface. Give yourself 1 hour a week with no social media. Sex 0.3 no conversations. Sex 0.3 no distractions. 0.5 just you and your mind. Point 5. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, even painful, because silence reveals everything you've avoided. but stay with it. Because once the discomfort fades, something magical happens. Clarity appears. Confidence appears. Strength appears. And slowly, steadily, you begin to meet the version of you that has been waiting for years. Solitude doesn't break you. It builds you. Silence doesn't isolate you. It transforms you. Your cocoon is calling. Step inside. Truth 7. Self-acceptance heals you. You are not broken. Here's the 7th truth, and it may be the one your heart has been waiting to hear. You are not broken. You're not too much. You're not too little. You're not late, lost, or less than. You are becoming, and self-acceptance is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. The reason you feel so disconnected from yourself is because you've spent years comparing your life to people who don't share your struggles. Sex, your history, or your heart. You scroll through social media and see perfect bodies, perfect careers, perfect relationships, perfect timelines, and somewhere inside, a quiet voice whispers, "I'm not enough." But here's the truth. Comparison isn't reality. Comparison is a distorted lens. Comparison makes you believe something is wrong with you when nothing ever was. You cannot hate yourself into a version of yourself that you love. You cannot shame yourself into becoming stronger. You cannot bully yourself into becoming confident. Growth that comes from shame will always collapse. Growth that comes from acceptance becomes unshakable. Look at people who have transformed their lives in the most powerful ways. Oprah Winfrey struggled with trauma, rejection, weight issues, and self-worth for years. Her life didn't change because she became perfect. It changed when she accepted herself with honesty and compassion. Jim Carrey battled depression and self-doubt, and he said the turning point wasn't success or money. It was accepting himself without masks. Even Keanu Reeves, who has endured unimaginable loss, found peace through accepting reality and embracing who he is, not who the world expects him to be. Acceptance doesn't mean settling. It means starting from truth instead of shame. So how do you practice self-acceptance? First, acknowledge your inner critic. That voice isn't yours. It was planted by people who didn't understand your worth. Second, stop apologizing for your feelings. You're allowed to be sad, tired, overwhelmed, imperfect. That's not weakness, that's humanity. Third, celebrate your small wins. Even turning on this video is proof that you care, that you're trying, that you haven't given up on yourself. Fourth, stop asking for permission to love yourself. No one gets to vote on your value. And finally, look at your flaws with compassion. They are not evidence that you're broken. They're evidence that you're human. Your scars are not signs of failure. They're signs of survival. You are not behind. You are not damaged. You are not unworthy. You are becoming. And self-acceptance is where healing begins. Truth 8. Never stop growing. Stagnation is the real enemy. Here's the 8th truth you need to understand. People don't fall apart because life gets harder. They fall apart because they stop growing. Stagnation, not failure, is what kills your spirit. When you stop learning, stop exploring, stop challenging yourself, stop stepping outside your comfort zone, your life doesn't just pause, it slowly starts to shrink. And the worst part is, you don't even notice when it begins. You wake up one day and everything feels dull, repetitive, heavy. You feel stuck, uninspired, unmotivated. But this isn't depression, It's stagnation. It's the quiet death of curiosity. It's what happens when your mind stops expanding but your problems keep growing. Most people grow up, but they don't continue growing. They finish school, get a job, settle into a routine, and slowly lose the fire they once had. They stop asking questions. They stop trying new things. They stop pushing their limits. And then they wonder why life feels empty. But look at the people who stay vibrant, focused, and alive no matter their age. They never stop growing. Will Smith said that the only way he survives the industry's pressure is by constantly reinventing himself. Not because he's lost, but because he refuses to stagnate. Jay Shetty spent years trapped in a cycle of overthinking and anxiety until he embraced learning again. Psychology, philosophy, mindfulness, and it completely reshaped his identity. Even people like David Goggins, known for extreme mental toughness, say that the moment you stop challenging yourself, you start decaying. Growth doesn't always look like success, zero. Sometimes growth is quiet. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's invisible. Growth is choosing to respond calmly to something you once reacted to with anger. Growth is saying no to someone you used to fear disappointing. Growth is trying something new even when you're scared of looking foolish. Growth is showing up on the days your mind tells you to quit. So how do you keep growing? Start by feeding your mind something new every day. One page, one idea, one question. Try something uncomfortable, a new hobby, a new routine, a new challenge. Create a 1% better journal and write down one way you grew today, no matter how small. Expose yourself to new environments and new people. And most importantly, be willing to be a beginner again. Because being a beginner doesn't make you weak. It keeps you alive. Stagnation feels like sadness. Growth feels like purpose. And when you choose growth, even slowly, your entire life begins to move again. Truth 9. You are a quiet hero. Your private battles matter. Here's the 9th truth. Sex, 0.3. And it's something you've probably never given yourself credit for. You are a quiet hero. Sex, 0.5. You may not see it. 0.3. No one may acknowledge it. 0.3. But the private battles you fight every single day matter more than you realize. In a world obsessed with attention and applause, people forget that real strength is built in silence. The courage it takes to get out of bed when your mind feels heavy, that's heroism. The resilience to keep going when no one encourages you, that's heroism. The ability to smile at others while you're fighting storms inside, that's heroism. And yet, because your victories happen behind the scenes, you convince yourself they don't count, but they do. They count more than anything. Look at the world's most inspiring people. Their greatest breakthroughs came long before anyone knew their name. Michael Jordan trained in empty gyms where no camera ever recorded a single move. Robin Williams battled internal pain for years. Sheks. Yet he made the world laugh because he refused to let his darkness define him. Lady Gaga said some of her most painful moments happened in silence, but those private battles shaped the strength she carries today. The truth is this: the moments no one sees are the moments that shape who you really are. The nights you cried but still showed up the next day, the days you felt alone but kept helping others, the dreams you nurtured quietly because you believed in them when no one else did. These silent victories make you powerful. They make you rare. They make you unbreakable. So how do you honor your inner hero? Start by recognizing your private wins. Write them down. Celebrate them. Respect them. Stop comparing your behind-the-scenes journey to someone else's highlight reel. You live the discipline while they only post the results. Next, #meta pause sex 0.3. Stop judging yourself for being tired. You're not weak. #meta pause sex 0.3. You're exhausted from carrying things most people don't see. #meta pause sex 0.5. Then #meta pause sex 0.3. Practice one act of goodness each day without telling anyone. #meta pause sex 0.5. That's how true character grows. In silence. #meta sex 0.5. And finally, meta pause sex 0.3. Remind yourself daily, I didn't quit. Sex 0.5. Because surviving another day when you wanted to give up, that alone is an achievement that deserves recognition. Meta sex 0.5. You don't need the world to clap for you to be a hero. Sex 0.5. You already are one. Sex 0.5. Quiet heroes may not always be seen. Sex 0.3. But they are the ones who rise the highest. Sex 0.5. And you're rising, even if you don't notice it yet. Sex 0.5. Truth 10. You care too much, and it's hurting you. Here's the 10th truth. Sex 0.3. And it's one that will probably hit you the hardest. You care too much, and it's destroying you from the inside out. Sex 0.5. Not because caring is wrong. Sex 0.3. But because you've been caring in ways that cost you your peace. Sex 0.3. Your time. Sex 0.3. Your boundaries. Sex 0.3. And even your identity. You care so much about how others feel that you forget how you feel. You care so much about not hurting anyone that you hurt yourself instead. You care so much about being a good person, a loyal friend, a supportive partner, a reliable family member, that you slowly disappear in the process. You overthink every message. You replay everything you said. You apologize even when you did nothing wrong. You shrink your needs to make others comfortable. You say yes when your soul begs you to say no. And eventually, you start believing the lie that your worth depends on how much you give, how much you fix, how much you sacrifice. But here's the truth. Caring is beautiful until it becomes self-betrayal. And right now, you're giving so much of your heart that there's nothing left for you. People who truly love you wouldn't require you to destroy yourself to keep them happy. People who genuinely care about you wouldn't let you carry the entire emotional weight of every situation. Yet here you are, carrying guilt that isn't yours. Sex 0.3. Carrying responsibilities that aren't yours. Sex 0.3. Carrying emotions that never belonged to you in the first place. Sex 0.5. Think about someone like Princess Diana. 0.5. Her kindness was legendary. 0.3. But so was her suffering. 0.5. She cared so deeply about everyone else that she neglected her own happiness. 0.3. Her own needs. 0.3. Her own safety. 0.5. And the world watched as that compassion, without boundaries, eventually broke her spirit. 0.5. Or look at Selena Gomez. 0.3. Who openly shared how caring too much. 0.3. Giving too much. And trying too hard to keep everyone happy pushed her into anxiety and burnout. 0.5. Her healing began the moment she learned to say no. to protect her peace, to stop pouring herself into people who only took without giving. Point 5. Even Keanu Reeves, one of the kindest celebrities on the planet, learned the art of emotional distance. He cares deeply, but he doesn't attach himself to expectations. He gives, but he doesn't overgive. He loves. #meta. Sex, 0.3, but he doesn't lose himself in the process. Sex, 0.5. So how do you stop caring in a way that hurts you? First, sex, 0.3. Pause before you say yes. Sex, 0.5. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of love or out of fear? If it's fear, fear of being judged. Sex, 0.3. Fear of losing someone. Sex, 0.3. Fear of conflict. The answer should be no. Sex, 0.5. Second, sex, 0.3. Stop apologizing for protecting your time. Sex, 0.3. Your energy. Sex, 0.3. And your mental health. Sex, 0.5. Boundaries don't make you cold, they make you healthy. Sex, 0.5. Third, sex, 0.3. Let people misunderstand you. Sex, 0.5. Your job is not to manage their opinions. Sex, 0.5. Your job is to live in truth. Sex, 0.5. Fourth, sex, 0.3. Remind yourself daily, you are not responsible for fixing everyone's life. Sex, 0.5. You are responsible for your own. Sex, 0.5. And finally, sex, 0.3. Choose people who pour back into you. Sex, 0.5. People who respect your boundaries. Sex, 0.5. People who don't make you prove your worth over and over again. Sex, 0.5. Caring is a gift, but only when it doesn't cost you yourself. You deserve relationships where your heart isn't drained. Sex, your mind isn't anxious, and your soul isn't shrinking. You deserve peace. You deserve balance. You deserve to care without collapsing. Truth 11. Detachment is freedom. Love without losing yourself. Here's the 11th truth, and it is one of the most advanced forms of emotional maturity. Detachment is not coldness, it's freedom. It's the ability to love deeply without losing yourself, to care genuinely without collapsing, to give wholeheartedly without becoming dependent on how others respond. Most people misunderstand detachment. They think it means shutting down, becoming distant, being emotionless. But real detachment is the opposite. It means you feel everything, but you are controlled by nothing. It means you love, but you don't cling. You give, but you don't overgive. You stay, but you don't sacrifice your soul to be chosen. The reason you've been hurt so deeply in the past is because you attached your worth to things you could never control. Someone's attention, someone's love, someone's loyalty, someone's approval. The outcome of a relationship, the hope that someone will finally treat you the way you treat them. And whenever those things changed, you broke, not because you were weak, but because you let your identity depend on what was never yours to hold. True detachment changes everything. Look at someone like Keanu Reeves. He loves people quietly, authentically, but never attaches his identity to them. He shows kindness without expectation, connection without possession, commitment without dependency. That's why he moves through life with such peace. Nothing controls him emotionally. Or take Buddha's teachings, which emphasize non-attachment as the key to ending suffering. It doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you stop trying to force things to stay the way you want them to. Even in modern psychology, #DAT 0.3. Detachment is seen as the foundation of emotional health. It gives you clarity. 0.3, stability. 0.3, and resilience. 0.5. So how do you practice it? First, point 3, stop building your identity around people. Point 5, you are whole with or without them. Love them. A ceasefire. Point 3, appreciate them. Point 3, enjoy them, but don't let them define you. Second, point 3, remind yourself that you cannot control how others feel. Point 3, act. Point 3, stay. Point 3, or leave. That's their journey. Your peace cannot depend on their unpredictability. Third, learn to pause before reacting. Detachment gives you a moment of breathing room, a moment to think, observe, and choose wisdom over fear. Fourth, stop begging for clarity from people who already showed you who they are. Your peace increases the moment you stop chasing closure. Fifth, okay, let go with love. You don't need to hate someone to release them. You don't need bitterness to move on. You can detach and still care. That's true emotional strength. And finally, detach from the fantasy, not the person. Most of your heartbreak came from the story you created in your head. #DAT sex 0.3. Not the reality of who they truly were. Sex 0.5. The moment you let go of who you hoped they would be. Sex 0.3. You finally see who you were always meant to become. Sex 0.5. Detachment doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. 0.5. It doesn't make you heartless, it makes you whole. 0.5. It doesn't make you selfish, it makes you free. 0.5. Love, 3, give, care, but never lose yourself in the process. Because the moment you choose yourself, everything changes. When you finally decide to focus on yourself, something powerful begins to happen. You stop moving through life like a shadow of who you could be, and you start stepping into the light of the person you were meant to become. You begin to heal. You begin to think clearly. You begin to feel your strength rising again. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. And that changes everything. You don't owe your past anything. You don't owe people who hurt you any more chances. Sex 0.5. You don't owe the world explanations. Sex 0.3. Apologies. Sex 0.3. Or performances. Sex 0.5. The only thing you owe, the only true responsibility you have, is to live a life that feels honest. Sex 0.3. Aligned. Sex 0.3. And true to your soul. Sex 0.5. This is your moment. Sex 0.5. Your restart. Sex 0.5. Your transformation. Sex 0.5. The version of you that kept trying. Sex 0.3. Kept giving. Sex 0.3. Kept loving. Sex 0.3. Kept surviving. That version is still here. Sex 0.3. Waiting for you to choose them. Sex 0.5, waiting for you to say, sex, 0.3, I matter, sex, 0.5, waiting for you to take your power back, sex, 0.5, you deserve to wake up with peace, sex, 0.3, not pressure, sex, 0.5, you deserve relationships that feel safe, sex, 0.3, not draining, sex, 0.5, you deserve goals that excite you, sex, 0.3, not expectations that suffocate you, sex, 0.5, and you deserve a life where your heart isn't constantly running on empty, sex, 0.5, but nothing changes until you change the direction of your focus. When you turn inward instead of outward, when you protect your energy instead of letting everyone take it, when you listen to your own voice instead of chasing the noise, when you choose yourself instead of begging for someone else to choose you, that's when your whole life begins to shift. Your confidence rises, your clarity sharpens, your mindset transforms, you attract better opportunities, better people, better energy, because you finally understand your worth. This isn't the end of the video. This is the beginning of your new chapter. And you don't have to make it dramatic, loud, or perfect. Change can start quietly. It can start right now, with a decision, with a shift, with a commitment to stop abandoning yourself. If something in this video touched your heart, even for a moment, let this